Now, for more on foreign investments in China, we're joined by Bejoy Das Gupta, Chief Asia-Pacific Economist at the Institute of International Finance. Welcome to the show.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Now, let's start with President Xi's recent remarks to reassure foreign investors. He was calling for a stable, fair, transparent and predictable environment for foreign firms. How do you think that's being received?
You know, let me start off by saying that timing is very good and it was needed. So FDI into China peaked at about $265 billion in 2013. By last year, it had fallen to about $165 billion. So the timing is good, and you know, lots of restrictions are there, and you know, in terms of market access, intellectual property protection, and things like that. So we need something to turn things around.
And certainly these comments will adhere to that. So what about the investment climate over the last few years? How would you say that's really changed, given what's happening in the global economy?
FDI it's attracting FDI. It's important for countries. It's the pull factors at work. There's lots of competition, and it's a globalized economy. So it's slipped a little bit in China. So you know, restrictions are there in the business climate, intellectual property. The capital controls haven't helped. So these measures would be positive, I think.
And in terms of competition, still, how attractive is China as an investment destination, say, compared to other countries in Asia, especially India?
So China is very, very competitive for manufacturing, but India is very competitive for services, especially. And India is also a competitor in the high value-added manufacturing. It's not just the sort of low-tech manufacturing. So China has its work cut out.
And we're certainly seeing China also moving to this high-value manufacturing. How do you see that shaping up?
You know, it's very important, but again, in that area, China has to ease up a little bit, especially on the technology side, and so it can move up the value-added chain.
So from the outside looking in, how attractive is China as an investment destination, and what's really drawing people there?
So China is a manufacturing powerhouse, and that's where still China remains very, very competitive. Its logistics, its infrastructure, it's competitive, but it is getting expensive, and the restrictions remain. So we are expecting a turnaround in FDI into China. It bottomed out last year at about $165 billion. This year, we reckon it'll be nearer to about 180 and about $200 billion next year.
And we're certainly seeing China trying to open up its market, but what is it that foreign investors are specifically looking for? You know,
they're looking for easing of restrictions in terms of ownership, intellectual property protection. The capital controls hurt the foreign investors a little bit. I mean, there are certain concerns, and macro stability, you know, in terms of overall some of the leverage issues in China and the performance of the equity markets as well.
Now, we also saw the value of mergers and acquisitions involving U.S. firms in China dropping 32% in the first half of this year. What do you think is driving that?
You know, it's the M&A environment generally is quite tough around the world globally. And part of the issue is able to access targets within China. And it's not as easy as it's made out to be.
Now, what about Ford's announcement to build cars in China rather than Mexico? Can we expect to see similar moves by U.S. companies?
You know, it's very positive, and part of the issue is really Mexico and the Trump administration. And China remains very, very competitive in auto manufacturing. And it's a draw. And that's an easier area for China relative to the high-tech side of things.
And as the U.S. does reposition itself trade-wise with other countries that China also does trade with, what sort of opportunities do you think that could open up then for China?
You know, outward FDI from China is also very important. And as it happens, last year, it exceeded FDI, inward FDI into China. So it's a two-way street here. And it's an opportunity for China around the world as well.
An opportunity indeed. Thank you so much, Bejoy Das Gupta, Chief Asia-Pacific Economist at the Institute of International Finance.